Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with yet another video of our roundtable, third episode, guys. Welcome back in like we usually do on Saturdays, which most likely what we'll do is once we kind of get into the swing of things come maybe August or September, we'll be doing this every Saturday around this time. If we need to move it, we'll definitely let you guys know. But we are doing another episode of the roundtable. Extremely excited. We got our guys, Sheriff Joe, we got CG Ruthless, and then we got Steezy A. Smith, guys. How are you guys doing today?
Amazing.
Blessed.
Doing good.
Blessed by the best.
Good, man. Good. Cool. Yeah, man, we got a few things to talk about today, man. There's definitely a lot of stuff that I want to go ahead and dive into, not only from the Cardinals perspective, but also from the Rams. We got the 49ers, and then we have the Seahawks. A lot of different things that are currently going on right now. 2 weeks before the draft. Absolutely super excited, guys. So let's dive into the biggest news that happened probably about 3 or 4 days ago. Breaking news that happened, and it's from Superstar Aaron Donald. Now, I'm going to go ahead and move this on over to my guy, Sheriff Joe, to see if he can give us the latest and everything that's currently going on with Aaron Donald.
Yeah, so initially, the reaction of hearing this news was like, oh, no, what happened? Like it was like one of those of like, oh, man, you're Aaron Donald. You can't be getting into trouble. But then it was also like, well, who's messing with Aaron Donald out here? Like, so that's kind of, you got the two perspectives there, but then immediately there was different versions of the story coming out. You hear day one, it was, he accidentally bumped into Aaron Donald and Donald just lost his mind and just beat the crap out of him. And then you hear he stole something from Aaron Donald, or he was talking trash to him all night. And, the immediate differences in reports, and we were getting so many different versions of the story, I immediately was kind of like removing myself of like, all right, I'm not going to have an opinion on this because we clearly don't know what's true. So Luckily, we live in 2021 where there's cameras all over the place, and a video actually did release of part of the incident. We didn't see all of it. So really what it ended up as, the story that we now know it or understand it as today, is that this gentleman swung a bottle at Aaron Donald, and then all of Aaron Donald's friends actually went after this gentleman. There are reports that Donald did kick him once while he's down, but the video clearly shows Donald actually pulling people off of this guy. So the gentleman's lawyer and him himself have already come out and decided to apologize to Aaron Donald, saying that it was mistaken identity. So sorry for your quarterbacks, but Aaron Donald will not be missing any time this season.
That's fair, man. Wow. Okay. So I'm not going to lie to you, man. When I heard this news, I was out of town. I was actually out of the country. And then, I get those DMs from my subscribers. They're like, Aaron Donald might miss a lot of time. And of course, you get onto Twitter, you get onto, Google and try to see what's going on. I initially thought, hallelujah. Not so much for the fact of like he's a person, I don't want him to get into like any trouble, but the idea of him missing some games kind of put a smile on my face. I'm not going to lie to you, but now that we know this is not true, or at least, that he wasn't all to blame, then I guess that sucks. Well, what do you guys say, man? What Steezy A or CG, man? What do you guys say about this?
Man, I don't really have too much else to add. I kind of saw the news, or upon initially watching or hearing about the news, I wasn't too worried. I kind of just thought it was another stunt. There are a lot of people out there that try to take advantage of, professional athletes, celebrities, and whatnot. I just know that Aaron Donald, his status, his stature as a player, his net worth, and all that. I mean, he knows that he can't be going around just doing stuff like that. And so, I didn't really buy it. I didn't believe it. So I'm glad that it's true. So
yeah. Definitely. What about you, CG?
Well, when I saw the story of it, it just didn't seem like it kind of like went in right, like in a way. Like when I've seen what was going on, that he was in a bar fight, I had to say you got to wait until you see the actual evidence before you even come to a conclusion. And I even like think to my own head, like, even if that's true, hey, we'll be relief on that problem. But no, I just think it was like full of BS, and I just didn't think it was true, because I mean, they like Sheriff just said, there was a mix of stories of what I saw in the article too. So it came to my conclusion that it just wasn't true.
Well, and I know you guys have seen, Aaron Donald for a few years, maybe me a little bit more with press conferences and him interacting with media, anything like that. And there are the issues on field. Like CG might remember a couple years ago when it was week 1, Aaron Donald actually got ejected from the game, threw his helmet down and all that stuff. And then, of course, he picked up Devonta Freeman, and made him look like a toddler and stuff like that. So he's had his anger outbursts and stuff like that. But they've all been on the field, and if you see him interact with people off the field in any way, whether that's media and the press and stuff like that, or just on his YouTube channel, he's got a channel. You can see him just interacting with his family, stuff like that. And I realize it's a different situation. He's at a bar, not cooking dinner with his family, but he's such a mild-mannered guy. And so immediately when I heard the story of him getting bumped into and then he just lost his mind and just beat up this dude, I immediately was like, that's not true. That did not happen. I don't know him personally. We're not out here hanging out every weekend, but from what I've seen from him, that seemed extremely out of character.
Right, exactly. And I think I saw a lot of people kind of mention to this comment that I just pinned right here, pretty much who's picking a fight with Thanos. Pretty much. I mean, you see all these pictures of Aaron Donald, and I don't know who in the right mind would even want to even mess with this guy. This guy, he's another breed of monster, man. Let me tell you that right now.
Definitely. Let's see him and DK Metcalf. Oh, I'd like to see that. I paid money for that.
Hey, they did
a little bit of a fight club thing where they go at each other.
Yeah.
They did have a bench press competition.
I saw that. Yeah, it was all I heard was the comments. Donald said that he could bench 500, which I'm inclined to believe him. I don't see why I wouldn't, but that's a lot of weight.
Yeah,
I believe it. I believe it. I mean, like you guys said, he's just something else. I don't think he's up this planet, really.
Right, seriously. No, absolutely. Cool, awesome. Well, now that we got all that cleared up out of the way, I think it was definitely something to kind of start the show off with because there was a lot of implications. There would have been a lot of things that would have happened if he were to miss some games, especially for the Rams defense. But I guess we don't have to worry about it now. And now we could play that defense at their best. Ugh. Sucks to say, but it's the truth. All right, let's move on here, guys. Let's talk about a little bit of the 2021 draft here. Now, before we go to the draft, let's talk about the latest signings. Has anything happened to your teams that you want to talk about before we move on to the draft?
Nothing really. Just the Justin Fields workout and all that stuff. Nothing really new.
Okay, if you want to talk about it real quick, go ahead and talk about it, man. I'm curious, especially from a 49er perspective. What do you think after I'm curious, and then we'll move on to Steezy.
It seems to me that everybody's talking about that smokescreen with Mac Jones. It's starting to kind of disappear now. Now it's kind of leaning towards Justin Fields with the second pro day workout. It seems to me Kyle Shanahan is very impressed, and then you can see the viral video of him talking with Justin Fields, and they're smiling. So it kind of gives you a hint that maybe he's the pick, That's pretty much what I've seen lately. There's just nothing new. Or Daniel Brunskill signed a tender. So that was recently because he signed the 1-year tender. So that's pretty much it.
Okay, perfect. That's fair. Do you want to get Justin Fields more after the pro day? Did you say it impress you more to be because I know last time we were talking about it, you're you would be okay with Mac Jones, but has that changed? Has your mind changed?
Nah, personally, it doesn't matter who we pick at quarterback because I know Shanahan knows how to put the plays in for the next quarterback. If he can make a guy like Matt Ryan an MVP type quarterback or make Brian Hoyer a really decent quarterback in Cleveland, then I'm pretty much confident that he can make Matt Jones pretty good. But I'm more on the Trey Lance train, so it hasn't changed my opinion on Justin Fields. I do like Justin Fields. He stood out, but I just think maybe the direction towards Justin Fields is kind of ignoring the Mac Jones now. So the Mac Jones smoke screen is what is it? Disappeared.
Okay, perfect.
No, I'm really glad you said that. None of this stuff is changing my mind at all. I said Trey Lance immediately when that trade happened. None of this stuff is actually going to sway me, I think. I'm pretty locked in on that. And I think this Justin Fields stuff that's now coming out, I think that's a smokescreen too.
All right, perfect. What about you, Steezy, man? What you got over there, man? Anything on new with the Seahawks?
Yeah, well, the Seahawks signed Alden Smith just a couple of days ago to a veteran minimum deal, and I think this is a wonderful addition to the team. I think it makes strength even stronger. I mean, you look at the Seahawks last season, They came on late after the addition of Carlos Dunlap at the trade deadline, and they ended up 7th in the NFL in sacks with 46. And so you bring in most of those guys back, minus Jaron Reed, but then you bring in Alden Smith, who he had 5 sacks last year, 50 pressures, and though he kind of he kind of wore down, I guess, as the season progressed. He had 4 sacks in the first 3 weeks, and then he only proceeded to have 1 in the final 11 to 12 weeks of the season. But I mean, keep in mind, he didn't play football for 5 years. It was 2015 when we last saw him. And so for him to put up some of the numbers that he did in Dallas, I mean, I think it's a testament to him and the work that he put in. Shout out Jay Glazer for getting him right. And I think that he's bound to have an even better season this year, especially given the fact that Dallas's defense is so incompetent. They were so incompetent. They were terrible last year. And so for him to put up the numbers that he did, I think it was a good thing. And then now you put him alongside Carlos Dunlap, Kerry Hyder, Darrell Taylor, our 2nd-round pick last year, Alton Robinson, who had 4 sacks as a rookie in a rotational role, Benson Mayowa. Let's not forget Jamal Adams. So this pass rush is absolutely loaded. And so for Seattle to get him at the price that they did, it's an absolute steal, really. What's it called? People still forget about Jamal Adams and his ability to get after the quarterback. So I think Seattle's in line to have not just a top 10 sack rate next season, but I think top 5 potentially. They've absolutely bolstered their pass rush, and I think this makes the corners and the secondary even better. Even though right now, I mean, the secondary is kind of an issue. You know, I think that Seattle needs help at cornerback, but having a great pass rush only benefits, those guys on the back end. And so Seattle also did want him at the trade deadline last year. They weren't able to get him, and now they are. So
nice.
Yeah, super excited.
Cool, man. What about you, CG? I know Alden Smith spent some time with the 49ers. I mean, not some time, but definitely a good amount of time with them. How are you feeling, man? How do you like Alden Smith, or how do you feel about this pickup from the Seahawks?
Well, I liked him when he first came into the league with us, and he was dominating. Like the first 2 years, you could have made an argument that he was better than Von Miller for sure. But then as the years went on, Von Miller just became the better player. But my reaction on that pickup from the Seattle Seahawks, I was kind of like shaking my head a little bit. But then I started thinking, you know what? Seattle's trying to like improve their defense a lot. Like they needed a better edge rushers. They needed some better depth. But why do you gotta take some of those sloppy seconds, man? That's what shaked my head a little bit. But then at the same time, I started being less biased about it. And I started thinking, well, they needed to have some pass rush. They needed some help there, and that's been their Achilles heels. Jamal Adams, who they picked up like in last year's trade, he was their best pass rusher with 9.5 sacks. So you can't just depend on your safety doing it all the time. You got to have somebody who can actually step in. Like Kerry Hyder, when Nick Bosa was injured, he stepped up really good and posted 8.5 sacks. Alden Smith, he's kind of showing signs of maybe he can be decent, but not the same player. Overall, as a Niners fan, that's good that you guys are taking a chance on him. He deserves another opportunity. And as far as that video, man, a lot of those Seattle fans were coming at me like I was like hating. No, the part of the thing was my opinion, and it was just hilarious. But yeah, that's just how I felt. But I think Seattle did a good job in the offseason when it came to defense addressing and then getting some offensive line help. That was a huge plus.
Perfect. Cool. Yeah, I guess one of the biggest things here for the Arizona Cardinals side of it all is none other than addressing our running back position. We ended up signing Steve. What am I talking about? Steve. James Conner to a 1-year deal. It was $1.25 million with $500,000 bonus is what it was. So super cheap deal. In terms of like the like how the fan base reacted to it, a lot of them didn't really like it. I don't understand why not, especially because it's like a 1-year deal. I understand like the injury concerns that come along with James Conner. Back in 2018, he did a very, very good job as far as being like a number 1 running back for the Steelers. But after that, you started to see some injuries. You started to see some regression. So I can definitely see the concern of a lot of people. But what I really think is that most people that are like giving James Conner so much like flack for us picking him up is people that want to get the Najee Harris, they want to get the Travis Etienne, they want to get the Javonte Williams. So I guess they have a little fear in their eyes saying that, oh, now that we signed him, that we don't have to get the need to get these players. But honestly, I still think it's all up in the air for this Arizona Cardinal team. It's only a 1-year deal. And it's going to be James Conner. Do you want to, revive your career within the the NFL, and I feel like this would be a good way for him to do it. I would love for him to be explosive. Over 900,000 rushing yards would be amazing, especially adding that to our offense. But we'll see. It's kind of a wait and see type of thing right now. I like the signing. It wasn't very expensive. That's what I always fall back to on that specific aspect. But we'll see what happens. I know Chase Edmonds is going to be number 2. And I think James Conner is going to be the number 1 guy. There's rumors about them splitting carries, so it's going to be kind of like the running back by committee. But we'll see exactly what happens when training camp opens up, preseason opens up, and all that different stuff.
With a deal that cheap and that short, do you really think that just says that they're not going to address that position in the draft at all? Because I don't know if it really says that. Right.
Yeah. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Well, here's the thing. Yeah, I honestly do think that we will still address it. Now, I don't know if we're going to go second round because when you do a lot of these mock drafts, I like to consume myself in them, and I hate doing it because it's all like based off their, the big boards that they have. So they have the the Najee Harris, they have the Javonte Williams and Travis Etienne's going in the later first, when actuality they might slip into the second. So I still do think the Arizona Cardinals can very well get a running back, whoever really falls to them, in the second. If it's not one of those top 3s, then I can probably see maybe a later round pick in the 5th or the multiple 6th and 7s that we have in the later rounds. So I could definitely see the Arizona Cardinals doing something like that for sure.
Is there any of those sleeper running backs that kind of have caught your eye?
Yeah, there's a good amount. One of them being Trey Sermon. Now, the biggest reason for that out of Ohio State is because how big he is. And Chase Edmonds is not the biggest guy. He's more of the elusive, catch the ball out of the backfield type of running back. So one person that I really have my eye on is going to be Trey Sermon, and as well as Michael Carter, I really like a lot, and Kenneth Gainwell. I really like those 2 running backs as well for the Arizona Cardinals, but it's definitely somebody that we can get in the later rounds. Hopefully, fingers crossed 5th, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think the James Conner addition is another great move by you guys. You look at some of the offensive lines that you have to deal with in Pittsburgh; they were amongst the worst in terms of run blocking. And so, with the improved O-line that you guys have in Arizona, I think that he'll thrive. And let's not forget when Le'Veon Bell held out. I think was it a couple years ago. James Conner had himself a career season, and so as long as he's able to stay healthy, I mean that's a big if. But I think this is a great move for you guys. But it doesn't necessarily stop you guys from taking running back if you guys so desire, just because of his injury history.
Exactly. I agree. I guess the only really concern going into the season is that it's really obvious that we're building out to be a 1 to 2 year window. Like this is our window to win. And it's such a stacked NFC West that I fear that it's either going to A, not happen, or B, just set us back because we're loading up on all these talents, all these former Pro Bowlers, your AJ Green, your JJ Watt. And if it doesn't end up working, it's just going to put us back again. And that's one thing that I really fear that's going to happen with this Arizona Cardinal team, especially with Cliff Kingsbury. I'm not the biggest fan of him. I know a lot of my subscribers know that about me already. I'm not on his bandwagon as of right now. I don't feel like he's going to be the guy that's going to take us to the playoffs or even win a couple games in the playoffs.
I'll say this, though. I think that every single NFC West team has a little bit of vibes of that they're trying to go for it right now. And
yeah.
I mean, the Rams and 49ers with their cap situation, they're kind of wiggling that around enough to where in a few years that could come back. The Seahawks, I'm not completely sold on their roster right now, but also I think that this Russell Wilson stuff that I don't think is actually over. I think that I don't think that kind of stuff just magically disappears now. All of a sudden, the relationship's better than it's ever been. But when he's gone, I think he brings so much to the football field that I think that they kind of fall off after he's done. And then, like you had mentioned with Arizona, so like you really could be looking in like 5 years. This could be the worst division in football. But right now, we're pretty awesome. So
right, exactly.
Okay.
We'll go ahead.
All right. Like personally, like the way you guys signed James Conner, yeah, it's more like a prove it deal, cheaper contract. It's a bargain move. If healthy, he's a really good running back. Yeah, I don't think it's pretty much going to change your guys' need at running back. So maybe you guys get one in the 3rd or 4th round, and you probably get a guy that like another Chase Edmonds type running back maybe. Or I do like Trey Sermon from Ohio State also because he used to play for the Oklahoma Sooners, and he was a beast out there. There's one running back that you guys might want to get, and he's really good. Rhamondre Stevenson. He's a beast.
I'll look into it. The only problem is that we don't have a third or a fourth. It's unfortunate. So we have our second, which is number 49, and we don't pick again until 160. So there's so much talent that's getting off of the board that we're like, I would love to get a running back within a third or fourth, but our third went to Rodney Hudson, our center, that we ended up getting, which this is good, definitely good. And then the fourth rounder went to the whole DeAndre Hopkins trade. So that's really my only concern when it comes down to the running back. But yeah, I'll look into him. Thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Cool. Let's segue into the draft, guys. This is the moment where we start talking a little bit draft. Now, I want to – I apologize, Sheriff Joe. I always kind of, point to the fact that you don't have a first rounder or you haven't had a first rounder in quite some time. But what is your first pick in this 2021 draft? Like, what are you looking at right now? Because I don't really know too much about the Rams. What is your first pick? And if you were to guess somebody that could fall to you guys and somebody that you would want on your team, who are you thinking?
Ah, man, that's a tough one. It's we don't pick until 57, so
Oof.
that's honestly about right for Rams' first picks in the draft, and we only have 6 drafted in the class as well. But the good news about that is the fact that we don't really there's no position that if we don't address it, then we're not a playoff team kind of thing. It's I think all of our starters are already here, and so that's a good thing going into the draft. As far as who I would like in that position, that's a tough one. Man, I'm not even actually sure because it's so difficult to predict who will be available.
True.
Knowing what these boards look like, because obviously every team's board's a little bit different. There is one name that keeps popping up that does intrigue me quite a bit. I'm just not convinced that he'll still be there at that spot. Is linebacker Chaz Surratt out of North Carolina. I think that he could, over the course of the season, become the starter opposite of Leonard Floyd, rushing the quarterbacks with Floyd and Donald. So that's one guy that I think that has the skill set and the instincts, the reactions to take over a starting role. But like I said, we're not really looking for any starters. This is pretty much we have 6 picks. Look like those will be used for depth for this season.
Cool. That's fair, man. That's fair. CG, not talking about your third overall pick because we all know it's going to be quarterback. But what about your other picks, man? Who are you thinking?
Oh, what player came to mind, like in the second or third rounds? If I had to pick one in mind, who stood out? I don't know if he'll be available, but he's moving up draft boards, so maybe he might just be an early second round pick overall. I like this Eric Stokes, man. He does ability in the cornerback position. He stood out in the combine. I watched a lot of his films. He's a dog. He's aggressive. He can hit. He's not afraid of tackling. He can fit on any system. He even when I watched his interview and stuff like that, they asked him questions. What kind of defense would he fit? He said he can play any defense and he would adjust. I like that about a guy, even though some people are saying, well, is it because he ran a fast 40? No, I've watched a lot of his film and he plays a lot faster than what he is. And I think if he's available in the 43rd pick, I pull the trigger for him. Or since this guy's draft stock is kind of sliding, there's been talks of maybe we could add another edge rusher like Jalen Phillips. I've heard a lot of injury, red flag issues with him. And if we take a flyer on him, maybe he might pay off. It might be the next good one because, D4 can't stay healthy. We can't depend on him. Samson Abukum, he's going to get his opportunities to play, of course. But we like to have a little more extra rotations. Depth doesn't hurt. But
sure.
If it came down to the third rounds or later rounds, there's a guy I do like, Chuba Herbert from Oklahoma State. I think he would be a nice running back, speedy back. Shanahan likes those kind of backs, but let's be honest, I don't think he's probably going to draft one. He's probably going to wait until undrafted. But that's the ones I do like. Asante Samuel, he can be a nice nickel back that can replace Quan Williams. That would be an option. But I don't think Taven Jenkins will be available in the second round. I do like the guy from Oklahoma State who can block aggressively better than Mike McGlinchey. So that's about the only ones who stood out to me.
Nice. What about you, Stevie A. Smith, man? What are you looking at into this draft? Any players that you want to talk about, anything? And where do you pick?
So, as you guys all know, the Seahawks only have 3 picks. We don't pick until 56th. But I haven't really zeroed in or locked in on any prospects just because I don't believe that we're going to pick anyone at 56. And I think I've said this before, but Seattle has never drafted below 8 players in the entire Pete Carroll, John Schneider era. And so I know for a fact Seattle's going to trade down, accumulate more picks, whether that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't know, but I haven't really been pegging any prospects. So I'm going to talk about needs instead. And I think, like I said earlier, our biggest need is going to be at corner. I know I did say that, the secondary is not going to be as bad as people think just because of the pass rush. But, I mean, beyond 2021, the current corners on the roster, there's no one signed beyond 2021 or 2022. And so Seattle definitely needs to draft, a guy that they could develop for the long run. And it doesn't hurt to bring in, youth at the position. I think interior offensive line. At center, I'm okay with Ethan Posick. There's nowhere to go but up. He was pretty solid last year. He struggled against Aaron Donald, but, I mean, what center doesn't? So I don't think he was terrible for us, but I think that Seattle could definitely bring in some competition against Ethan Posick. And so wherever the Seahawks pick, whether that's at 56 or I believe it's going to be in the maybe 60s, 70s, so early third round, I think they should just look to draft the best player available, whether that's at corner or interior offensive line. But another need that I have is definitely a wide receiver. I like Freddie Swain. I think he could step in and be that wide receiver 3 for the Seahawks. But behind him, I mean, there really isn't much depth. There's a whole lot of inexperience. And so in the event that anything happens to DK and Tyler Lockett, the best wide receiver duo in the NFL, I mean, Seahawks are going to need some bodies at the wide receiver position. So wide receiver is another need. And then this draft is super deep at wide receiver. And so I have no doubt in my mind Seattle could, get a starting caliber receiver in the 3rd round, 4th round. Another position, I'm thinking maybe linebacker. I did think that the Seahawks were going to bring back KJ Wright, but it still hasn't happened. And so just in case we don't bring him back, I still think he does come back, but as of right now, he hasn't done so. And so we're going to need some help at linebacker. I'd say opposite Jordan Brooks and Bobby Wagner. Bobby Wagner is getting older. Even if we bring back KJ Wright, I mean, he's, 31, 32, and he's not going to be there forever. And so we need another young linebacker aside from Jordan Brooks. And then last but not least, I think potentially backup quarterback. I don't think Seattle should address that spot until maybe the 7th round, 6th round. But as of right now, there isn't a backup quarterback on the roster. I don't know if the veteran quarterbacks out there that are on the market, but I'd look for the Seahawks to draft a young guy that they could develop. And then in the event that I don't think this is going to happen because I think that, Seattle is going to win some football games. I think they're going to advance next year. But in the event that Russell Wilson is traded sometime in the next couple of years, at least Seattle could say that, okay, we took a guy in this draft. We have a guy that we could develop. And keep in mind, I mean, it's been a while, but Seattle is really good at finding diamonds in the rough, especially in the draft and the later rounds. And so who knows, even if they were to draft a guy in the 6th or 7th round, maybe that quarterback could emerge as a future starter if Russell Wilson's out the door. But whether that happens or not, I mean, they do need a backup quarterback. So once again, corner, interior offensive line, wide receiver, potentially a backup quarterback, a linebacker, and then maybe just a tackle of the future just because Dwayne Brown, he's getting up there in age, and I only see like maybe 1 or 2 more years of quality play left in him. So those are some of the needs I have for the Seahawks.
I have a question for you. David Moore, is he gone? Is he no longer a part of the team?
He's in Carolina.
Oh, did not know that.
Yeah,
okay. I liked him. I thought
Panthers.
he was pretty decent. They just didn't re-sign him?
Yeah, they didn't re-sign him. I liked him too as a 3rd option. I thought that was a little too rich for him. I think he should be maybe a team's 4th or 5th option, especially a Super Bowl winning team. He did provide, some great production, I guess, and he had a couple of cool touchdowns for us. But I thought he was a little inconsistent from time to time. And so great for him, though. I mean, he got paid in Carolina, so happy for him.
Yeah, definitely. Kudos for him for sure. Yeah, so I guess in terms of the Arizona Cardinals, it's so crazy because our 16th overall pick can go any which way. We can trade back. We can get a corner. If the corners are available, at least the top 3 corners. We can go ahead and get a guard. We can get a running back. It's just there's so many options that are open. So, yes, I would love to pinpoint a specific player, but it's just like I said, it's so hard to tell. But in terms of like sleepers and stuff like that, I know there's a lot of people that are slipping off draft boards. Like CG said, Jalen Phillips, also Gregory Rousseau was one of them that was seen to be a 1st rounder. Now he seems to be going to the 2nd or the 3rd or something like that. So him being really cool. Tyson Campbell, which is basically opposite of Eric Stokes, which you were talking about a little earlier. I think there's another cornerback that we could definitely look into maybe in the later rounds. In a perfect world, I would love the Arizona Cardinals to trade back a few spots and see if we can recoup a 3rd. Unless JC Horn falls, unless there's a player that we really, really want, then obviously take him at 16. But if it comes down to the points that all top 3 corners are gone, or actually, I don't even know with whole Caleb Farley thing happening right now. What do you guys think about Caleb Farley? Do you still think it's a risk that you would be willing to take if Caleb Farley was there? Because I know my fan base, the Cardinal fan base, they pretty much wrote him off already, but I still think that he's a viable option for the Cardinals. Let's start off with Sheriff Joe. Do you know a little bit about Caleb Farley? Do you?
I'm actually not familiar with what's happening with him.
Yeah, so basically he ended up getting back surgery. Something happened with his back, and he got surgery, and it basically spooked a lot of people. He was meant to be maybe top 10, top 15 in the draft, and because that happened, he got shot up to like the end of the first or the beginning of the second. So that really hurt his draft stock. So the person that I was eyeballing, J.C. Horn, is now seen to be the number 2 because of, obviously injuries and stuff like that. Do you? What about you, CG or Steezy? Does any of you guys have any input on Caleb Farley? Would you take a flyer on him?
I still think he's worth the risk. I mean, even if he slides, I still think it's a win-win for the Cardinals because usually when they have this off-season surgery, they usually come back a little bit better, like later in the season. So I think you guys would have a good risky gamble pick. I mean, you guys do need a starting cornerback to replace Patrick Peterson.
100%.
And Caleb Farley's still talented, no doubt.
I agree. Steezy A. Smith, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, look, Caleb Farley, before he got injured, he was the consensus number 1 cornerback in all of people's draft boards. And so I'm not super worried about his injury. I mean, you look at sports medicine and technology nowadays. I mean, I don't want to say easy, but it's a lot when it comes to, recovering from surgery, rehabbing and all that. It's kind of at an all-time high right now when it comes to players, coming back better than ever, stronger than ever, quicker than ever and all that. So I think that for me, it's a little easier for me to say that, oh, yeah, pick number 56. I'd love to get a Caleb Farley. I doubt that he falls that far. But if Seattle, let's say he falls to like the 50s, I actually wouldn't mind Seattle not trading down and staying at 56 to take a guy like Caleb Farley because I think he has that much potential. I think he can be that good, and hopefully he lands with the right team. But, I mean, I think he has a bright future still in the NFL.
I agree. I definitely am one of them that I completely agree with you, CG, Steezy, and Sheriff Joe. I think he could still be a viable option for the Arizona Cardinals, picking up at the 16. I know a lot of people would be, pitchforking and really upset about getting, especially because of the whole scare with the whole back injury. But I still think he's very, very good. Seen to be maybe the top 1st or the top 2, just really depending on who you're asking in terms of cornerback guys. But yes. Anything else to add before we end this roundtable, guys? Thank you so very much for being here, by the way. Anything else to add before we end the roundtable?
Just waiting for the draft.
That's fair. Exactly. Yeah, waiting for the draft. Super stoked, guys. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. Thank you, everybody in the chat. All right, guys, that's how we're going to go ahead and end it off. Have a great rest of your day. Go Cards, and I'm pretty sure.
Go Niners.
I knew it. All right, guys, later.
Hey, take care, y'all. Be easy.